Pokemon Black and White are really good. There's 156 new Pokemon, which is the biggest batch ever, and we actually get to play with them. They're not locked away till the post-game like Gold and Silver or Diamond and Pearl did really bad. In fact, we can only play with a new Pokemon. That's all you can catch. For the first time in the series, we're free of retreaded Machops and suffocating tentacles. Also, the Generation 5 story is the best that Pokemon writing has ever been, featuring deep characters who actually experience doubt, challenge, and growth. The level design is really strong and areas are integrated well into the world. And some more specific points, HMs don't ruin your team comp, and it's actually fun to search for hidden items this time. Game Freak took everything they learned balancing the Pokemon games over the past 4 generations and basically gave us a brand new series reboot with Pokemon Black and White. This is how to make a good Pokemon game. I don't even have an ironic except for so-and-so statement to add on to that. I really think Pokemon Black and White are amazingly crafted. The UI is still funky, I guess? But before we hippity-hop even further into the weeds, hello, I'm Mothy, Jimothy for long. Thank you for being here. I've been making retrospectives on the entire Pokemon game series, starting from Red and Blue going forward. That's allowed me to make content-heavy analysis of these games, comparing each one with the games before it to see what improved, what stayed broken, and what entirely new mechanics disrupted the series every generation. Well, here we are covering Pokemon Black/White versions, the 5th generation of games released in March 2011. Now, I didn't own any Nintendo consoles between the Game Boy Color and a 3DS I finally got in 2018. I have a huge blind spot for Pokemon after Generation 2. I did osmose a little knowledge of Generations 3 and 4 as I grew up and lost track of the series. Then by Generation 7, I was watching YouTube more as an adult, rediscovering Pokemon through RT Game and getting back into the series. But Generations 5 and 6 were shrouded in the darkest veil for me before working on this video series. So I'm still rather fresh with these games, for better or worse. I might make more mistakes, but I'm also not burdened with any past opinions, so my commentary on Pokemon Black and White will be earnest and bright-eyed. So bright-eyed. I like to cover these games through the lens of a full playthrough, but before we get started on Gen 5, let's remind ourselves what problems the games were facing as of Platinum and Heart Gold Soul Silver versions. This is according to me and my own past videos. What am I hoping to see fixed in Generation 5? Point 1, well, the HM burden reached an extreme point in Gen 4, cutting out a whole 38% of your team's move slots if you kept every HM around, or else you had to fiddle around constantly with move deletion or waste party slots on HM slaves. Point 2, we've been seeing the same Generation 1 Pokemon since Generation 1. Machop, Zubat, Geodude, Tentacool, Goldeen, Abra, and Magikarp, probably some others, have been ever present, and it's past time for a divorce. We barely even got to enjoy the new Pokemon Generation 4 did add, because a lot of them were stuck in the postgame. 3, the battle animations have sucked since Crystal version. For Generations 3 and 4, we only got cheap keyframe animations and colored overlays rather than proper animated Pokemon sprites. And 4, I haven't cared for the recent combat balance, though this point is more subjective. Movesets were highly aggressive, and it became much harder to defensively counter anything. This is a problem compounded with the HM thing. With less room in your moveset to run defensive moves, the best choice was to run nukes and try to one-shot your opponents. I just personally prefer a bit of back and forth rather than building a team full of glass cannons. Lucario. So, with our list of grievances laid out, let's get going on a playthrough of Gen 5 and see if any of these issues got better. We're playing Pokemon Black version for reasons discussed later, and doing our best to hit every piece of content in the game. That means doing every quest, optional area, and NPC trade, and I also like to follow strong hints the developers give us about how to play, such as Charon suggesting that we catch a fighting type for the second gym as canon. Collectively, it's a style that I call playing Pokemon Black as intended. And if you enjoy the content, do please hit positive interactions on the video for me. It's a big help to me so that I can get more of this kind of video made for y'all. Thank you. Now let's play. Immediately, character sprites are more mature in Gen 5. The whole game is dialed slightly more mature, to be honest. The player is supposed to be age 14 in Gen 5, which is a big maturation from the age 10 of previous games, but I think both characters actually look like 23-year-old geology students. The game wastes 0 time putting a Pokemon in our hands and getting us in 2 battles. That's 1 battle each against our 2 friends, Bianca and Charon. Already, we see Gen 5 is great at cutting the chaff. We don't need a long intro. Pick your starter immediately and get to using it. All 3 Unova starters have great value in the meta, in my opinion. Snivy and Tepig's types are quite useful, but I actually discovered that the list of Surf learners is relatively short for once, and we can smooth out that problem later by grabbing Oshawott right now. I named this guy Javert because he's police colors and he caught you stealing loaves of bread. There is a weird running joke in this game about the logistics of battling indoors and how that makes a mess. That doesn't stop us from doing it, but all of a sudden the game is oddly concerned about the IRL battle ramifications. Downstairs, Mother is a little too eager to rush us out the door on our Pokemon journey, handing us the X Transceiver, which is again just the Pokegear reskin that they feel the need to rename every generation. And then it's outdoors to meet Professor Juniper, who hands us and our friends each a Pokedex before we start our journey north out of town on Route 1. Sharon and Bianca are both our friend and rival throughout Pokemon Black, collectively giving many more rival battles than we've ever had before. It's like 12, I think. They're also interwoven in the game to a much higher degree. They'll be doing Route 4 while we're doing Route 4, coming or going from a gym that we're about to challenge. Gen 5 feels so alive thanks a lot to the writing of our friends, but they also kept each individual cutscene short enough that we're not spamming A in frustration. Bianca and Sharon hit a nice balance. In Accumula Town, we meet the bad guys of Pokemon Black and White. Team Plasma, led by Getsis, gives a peaceful speech in the park? That's not bad guy behavior. We, the player, can tell they're up to no good, but it sounds like all they want is for Pokemon to be liberated from abusive trainers, and Team Plasma wants that idea to take hold in the populace for wide support before they try and force it. Throughout this video, I'm not going to give a play-by-play of the Team Plasma plot, so in summary, they're trying to trick people to release their Pokemon so that Plasma can be the only ones left who have any. It's no The Departed, but this is the most intrigue and nuance that we've had from my Pokemon bad guy plot yet. And Team Plasma has one young member, the boy N, who fights us after the speech. He's clearly very special, being neither a boss nor a grunt, but we won't learn how he's special for a while yet. N takes the role of a third and more traditional Pokemon rival. His fights number fewer, but they tend to be more difficult than the others, and it's N that will battle in the endgame. But this town isn't relevant past these 5 minutes, so quickly head west on Route 2, where our mom catches up to gift us the running shoes, Generation 3's greatest addition to the series. We quickly run into a big, obvious strength boulder. Now, one of my least favorite parts about Pokemon games is how they hit us with a bunch of small trees, strength boulders, and items placed tantalizingly across the water throughout the game before we have the HMs to access them. It's why I low-key hate Metroidvanias too. Keeping notes or worrying about missing loot and obsessively checking the whole map after every time I gain a navigational power, that's not fun. Well, Gen 5 still has these oops not yet dummy gates, but so many fewer of them. Like, I can remember one strength boulder and one cut tree to come back to. That's within my abilities. Bianca catches us for a fight as we approach Striaton City. Javert is a comfortable high level for soloing her, and my team is actually going to stay relatively high level throughout the run by my choice. You see, I played white version for a casual run before planning things out to film black version here. And on that run, faced with a river of new Pokemon, I got excited and caught too many too early, spread out my experience points, and fell into a bad state where wild Pokemon in the grass outleveled me, so repels didn't work, and most of the team was too slow to successfully flee from fights. Being underleveled is miserable in Gen 5 because of how high level the wild encounters are. So, I may have overcompensated on this run. I caught Pokemon conservatively, limiting myself to only ones that I have a long-term vision for, but that led to most fights being pretty easy from concentrating all the XP into fewer Pokemon. Hitting a middle ground is not easy, and I missed twice. Several NPCs in Striaton City give out free Pokeballs. There was a ball giver back in Accumula too. This is a repeat of Gen 4 where NPCs showered you with free Pokeballs early on in the run. I'm not sure why this is a trend. It's gotta be psychological to get us thinking about catching more Pokemon, right? Make us guilty for holding so many free balls and see if we can be encouraged to go catch them all. The free ball supply continues pretty strong throughout the game, so I only ever bought my own just to have special colors. There's a bit of other content to cover in Striaton before we're allowed to fight the first gym. So the type of this gym is actually variable to specifically counter your chosen starter Pokemon. We have a water starter, so the gym leader is going to be Salon, the grass trainer. But the game does hand us a way to fight back. If we visit the Dream Yard east of town, one girl gifts us one of 3 elemental monkey Pokemon designed to counter the coming gym. For us, that means Pansear, the fire monkey. I named mine Adult because I need one of those, and without any training, she should get us through the gym leader who would otherwise crush our naked water type. Back in town at the trainer school, Charon wants a second battle. His Snivy is a good chance to test out the strength of Adult, whose Incinerate even burns away his held Oranberry, making sure this is only a 2-turn battle. Monkey Tech works. So now inside the gym, Clyde introduces himself. This is the guy who stands inside each gym and advises us how to win against the gym. He gives us a fresh water now, and in each future gym we speak to him, so we always want to be greeting Clyde. It's a nice incentive to reward us for taking his advice. So, like I said, this gym has a variable leader. They make you challenge the one that your starter is weak against. It's a clever game design to force team diversity and to get around any of these starters being straight better than the rest, but it's awkward writing. Because there's only 3 possible gym leaders, so none of them individually have much personality, and they don't get included when there's a coalition of gym leaders helping us fight the bad guys later. It's the other 7 leaders. Salon is just, well, an NPC. So, in the fight, Javert blasts Salon's Lilliput, but his ace is a grass monkey. That funky monkey. I need a Dilt to incinerate this grass monkey junkie, which takes several turns, but his counterattacks hit like a noodle, and we survive long enough to score badge 1. A scientist named Fennel accosts us when we leave, bringing us to her studio apartment / lab to hand over the cut HM. Now we can go handle those 2 shrubs we've passed. In fact, I think they're the only 2 shrubs we see all game. I do love that we're not required to keep cut around after this early stretch. Gen 5 was not ready to do away with HMs entirely, but they cut down, so to speak, significantly on places where we need them. Still, I'd rather not have the unforgettable move on a Pokemon that I'm gonna use, so I teach Cut to Adult now that we're done using her. Beating the gym also unlocked Repel for sale in March, so I bought a bunch to get me going. I'm a heavy Repel user throughout history because I only ever want to see wild Pokemon encounters when I'm hunting for a catch. The game gives plenty of experience points if you only do the trainer fights, so there's no reason to grind wild Pokemon. And I can say, this game is a fair bit friendlier to Repel Chads than the last 3 generations have been. Gone are the massive dungeons of Gen 4, the wide ocean routes of Gen 3, and there aren't as many cunty small grass patches breaking up the middle of walking paths like Gen 2 had. There's some guy at Game Freak who specifically wanted to make it feel good to walk around this game world, and making our repels go further is one piece of that puzzle. We get our first fights with Team Plasma as we return to the Dream Yard behind the cut tree, these grunts trying to beat up a Munna for its Dream Dust. Their outfits are really cool Crusader armor. You think I could go to a Ren Fair as a Plasma grunt? People go as fake wizards and stuff. Anyways, Bianca stays behind after the ruckus to catch a Munna of her own, which we see her send out in future battles. It's a nice bit of continuity. But unfortunately, that is the only one of our rivals' Pokemon that they explain. The rest get caught off screen and they aren't mentioned. Like, Charon does at one point say he's going to catch Pokemon on Route 4, but he doesn't actually add anything from there to his team. Here's a new encounter mechanic in Gen 5, rustling grass. You can also count rumbling spots in caves or shadow spots in the water as the same mechanic. Some Pokemon are only catchable from these special random active tiles. That includes Audino, who has a special purpose. Defeating this Pokemon gives a massive experience point boost. And that's no secret or hack or anything. A girl in the next Poké Center literally calls out this fact. Audino is basically sanctioned by the developers as a free XP pinata. I didn't feel the need to farm them, but if you happen upon some rustling grass naturally, it would be irresponsible not to claim the bonus. Javert did reach level 17 on the few that I killed for demonstration purposes, learning a nice water attack and then evolving into Duat. Then I left Stryton City to the west on Route 3, where some preschoolers pull me into a double battle. Which is weird because there are like 2 double battles in the entire game. It's quite a departure from Gen 4, which was brimming with double battles and was a lot of fun for it. Here we only have enough to barely remind the player that the mechanic exists. Here's my take though. Pokemon Black and White seem to put careful attention on combat balance overall. We'll see evidence of that throughout. My guess is that they wanted to limit gimmicky battles so that they could have better control over the combat design overall. Still, I do miss double battles for most of the game, and we can call their near absence the first thing that I dislike about Pokemon Black and White. Our third Charon fight comes now, Javert still able to solo his team despite the grass weakness, then Team Plasma blows past us having stolen a young girl's Pokemon. We catch them in Wellspring Cave for the game's only ally double battle alongside Charon, then what could the prize be for our heroics except several more free Pokeballs? At least we're finally going to use some. It's time to expand the team. Back inside Wellspring Cave, after resolving the scene, I've got my eyes on Roggenrola. One thing I celebrated in the past is how Game Freak changes the relative strength of Pokemon species through the opponents that we face, the meta of each game. Ground and Psychic were busted in Gen 1, Gen 2 was actually the most balanced, Gen 3 made Grass and Electric type amazing, and Gen 4 was kind to Grass, Dark, and Ghost. Well, Gen 5 is the most asymmetrical game yet in this sense. Some types are incredible and some are properly bad. Fighting type carries early and also throughout the entire game thanks to the prevalence of Dark and Steel opponents. Ice type has a million targets too, and so does Rock. By that token, Electric type is worse than ever because Ice and Rock eat its lunch on Flying type, and there's barely any water foes. So, to take advantage of Rock being good, this little guy is Belieber. We love him, but he needs a little boost at first. I used wild double battles from Dark Grass for Javert to help boost him to level 14 to learn a rock attack, and he's self-sufficient from there. Quite strong, even. Sharon catches us as we enter Nacreon City to foist some chesto berries on us. That's very weird and contextless until you learn that the next gym leader's Watchog knows hypnosis. Then it's actually an amazing called shot. Sharon also specifically recommends that we catch a fighting type Pokemon at this point because the gym is normal type. Exactly the kind of strong hint that I love to act on in games. That'll be our third Pokemon, and now you see if we had caught anything else to share in Javert's early solo dominance, we'd suddenly be at 4 Pokemon on the team, which feels kind of much for this point in the game. Javert was lonely for a while, but soon we'll have a nice little team. An ace trainer inside a house here gives us a free grass, fire, or water damage boosting held item according to the starter that we tell her we picked. But we can lie if we want to, like if we wanted a charcoal to boost our monkey, but I do prefer Mystic Water for Javert, so I just told the truth. And in another house is our first NPC trade of the game. The NPC trades always feel like content, so there's something I've enjoyed performing all of in each game. They've been on a steady downtrend since Generation 2, with the exception of Heart Gold and Soul Silver doing a great job with them. I'm excited to see how Gen 5, with its reboot fix things mindset, handles the trades. But we can't possibly have caught the cottony that this trade asks for yet, so we'll have to return. Now, Pokemon Black and White exhibit an interesting pattern. The world is very linear, a thing that one could be sad about, but the game does always let you advance slightly farther down that line before you have to turn around and beat the previous gym. See here, Pinwheel Forest is blocked by Team Plasma until we beat Nacreon Gym, but the forest outskirts is a large area we can clear now, fighting a bunch of trainers, and it's where we can follow Charon's advice about getting that fighting Pokemon. Available to us is Timburr, but I didn't care for Beetlejuice, so I'm gonna look for a sock or a throw, these colorful dudes in karate clothes. It's a rather tough catch to make, but eventually I land a sock for the team named Tippy Tim. He's a plain fighting type with decent stats, perfect for trivializing Nacreon City's normal type gym. But before we return, there's a big rock down here that you can break a star piece off of once a day if you have a fighting type with you. That's free money, so sure. N crops up when we go to enter Nacreon's gym for his second fight. Unlike our rivals, his team changes every fight to reflect the batch of wild Pokemon in the surrounding areas. It's neat once you notice it. I think the implication is that he befriends Pokemon so easily that they rush to him like Snow White and he has a new team wherever he goes. The lore development here is that N doesn't seem to be evil. He's got a vision for a better world, so he's working to gain strength to effect his plan, but he always has respect, if not understanding, of our character. Anyway, the gym. Some scientist catches us on the way in to make us stare at a mysterious white stone that's actually really important later, before we're given access to the library in the back, which serves as the gym. After a simple reading comprehension test, we're in to fight Lenora, whom Tippy Tim just wipes the floor with, not even needing that chesto berry that I packed him for lunch. And that's badge 2. What follows is a big Team Plasma ruckus as they steal a dragon skull from the museum, and an episode in the Pinwheel Forest as we go to retrieve it. But the bigger news is getting the dowsing machine from Bianca. This is by far the best implemented the item finder mechanic has ever been, the machine pointing the direction of hidden items nearby until we're right on top of them. We don't have to keep activating it or tapping the bottom screen, it's just constantly pointing the way as long as we have it open. Annoyingly, it closes if we ever open our Pokemon screen, so I have to keep reopening it, but that's a separate UX gripe. The challenge comes when the dowsing machine sometimes points you down a ledge or on the other side of a fence, and we have to figure out how to get over to the hidden item. So, we chase down Team Plasma to recover the dragon skull, meeting another of the 7 sages Team Plasma has in leadership, before we're free to explore Pinwheel Forest. One path in here is mysteriously blocked by an old man who mentions the presence of fierce Pokemon. This really gets my curiosity going. How fierce? Can we catch him? How do I make this man move? It's a seed of curiosity planted for later. And we've one important task before leaving the forest. Cottony can be caught to knee here, so I grab one, then return to Nacreon City to cash that in for Dai's Pettilil, Lilil. Now, I was very close to running Lilil. She was on 3 of 4 potential teams I drew up for this run, and you know I like to run a traded Pokemon where I can. There are just so many other cool new grass types in the game, and I didn't want to fill in the team so early, so I passed on Petilil for pacing issues. Lilil has a perfect modest nature, the good chlorophyll ability, and a great moveset. Quite a reasonable trade. Oh, and NPC traded Pokemon now come in at hard-coded levels. They don't just match the Pokemon that you give them. This one is level 15. We get to cross Sky Arrow Bridge on the far side of the forest, a hiker in the gate handing me a quick claw that I give to Believer. This bridge is a gigantic 3D scene that pulls back the camera for scale and everything. A cargo boat passes underneath, and trucks zip by on the driving lanes as we descend into Castelia City. Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum had light 3D elements in the game world, but Black and White are fully confident in their modeling, with a fully 3D game world that's not shy about showing off. Unova is quite pretty artistically. Now we're in this game's Celadon or Goldenrod type of city. Castelia City looks huge, but it's actually no more confusing or busy than any other town in the game. The level designer did a great job here focusing down where the player can go. There are just 3 straight streets to walk down toward a central plaza, like spokes of a wagon wheel connected by a 4th outer road that's the wheel rim. And there's a small pier at the close end of each street. A scientist on one of them will gift an evolution stone based on the monkey that we tell him that we're raising, but like with the held items, we can lie here. We actually get another firestone pretty soon, so even if you are raising a Panseer, you might want to ask for a different stone from this man. In Castelia's Poke Center is a man in black who has a prize for us, a good one if we've made Pokemon trades with 5 different people. I play offline single player, but luckily NPC trades do count, and there are 5 of them. We just won't achieve 5 until much, much later. So let's head up Castelia Street. In the lobby of the Game Freak building, a girl tells a story about Zorua, which registers it as a sighting in our Pokedex. Otherwise, we can't see one in-game without being in the year 2011 and having parents who care about us. Across the street is our first vending machine, so I spend a few minutes spamming fresh water as still the most cost-efficient healing item by a wide margin. It's nice to grab a few dozen of these up front, then never need to worry about buying more heals all game. Then reach the plaza at the hub where all of Castelia's streets meet. This dancing man wants to have a Pokemon battle, but then he asks us to find him 2 more dancers throughout the city in order to build a dance crew. We'll keep an eye out. Down Mode Street now, which might be a pun on a la mode because there's a stand selling Castelia Cone ice cream on Tuesdays only. In non-winter months, limit 1. Quite specific. This is just a full heal reskin, though it can be resold for a profit to a certain NPC. It's not critical. The Battle Company sits at the bottom end of Mode Street. This sounds like a Battle Frontier kind of place, but it's actually just an optional small dungeon with many battles against salarymen and scientists with some great loot. One clerk gifts 3 quick balls, which we can't get more of until quite late in the game, and for beating the CEO, who's dressed like a janitor, and whose Pokemon is a literal bag of trash for comedic purposes, we get an XP share. The final interesting building on the outer ring street is the Survey Company, which is mostly a local multiplayer thing, but we can provide our answers to 8 whole surveys to this blonde woman, which takes quite a long time, mind you, for the prize of a single soda pop. I felt like quite a degenerate doing all this for a soda, but I am defined by these behaviors. This is value. Gather one of those dancers we're supposed to find on one of the piers, then find the last one up Narrow Street, where a man foists a Flash TM on us as we pass. I still think Flash should have been an HM because there are more uses for Flash in the game than Cut, but letting it be deletable is nice. The original dancer hands us an amulet coin, having assembled him a crew, and that's generally nice to keep equipped on some Pokemon for the rest of your run. Black and White are more generous than ever with cash rewards, but the game also gives us more reasons to spend our money than ever, namely on TMs, which set you back up to $70,000 apiece. Castelia Gym would be our next stop, but again the game lets us clear a little ways ahead if we want to. Heading north from the plaza, on our way out of town, we receive an interesting new item, Eviolite, which ties in well with one theme this generation of Pokemon has. Eviolite is a held item that boosts defense and special defense by 50%. Wow. Because it's a percentage, this is best with a slow Pokemon who already has good defenses. For example, this turns Munna from okay into quite good, but the bonus is only granted to Pokemon who are not fully evolved. Now, Black and White with its huge batch of new Pokemon included an unofficial cycle of what I'm calling investment Pokemon. Think back to Dratini or Togepi, Pokemon who take a lot of effort or XP to evolve, but then have impressive final evolutions. Generation 5 introduced lots of these all at once, and this Eviolite feels carefully engineered to complement those investment Pokemon so that they can be a little stronger while they're still in their larval stages. Okay, so a portion of the Deserty Route 4 is open before completing the Castelia Gym. I actually don't bother doing this one early since my levels are fine, but it's a nice place to catch Darumaka if you want a fire type against the bug gym. Which we'd love to go challenge, but there's yet another Team Plasma stole somebody's something or other vignette that we have to handle with a few grunt battles first. I know I'm a little more cynical about these while doing the script, but I actually thought they did a nice job integrating Team Plasma throughout the game journey. Previous evil teams, we've just kind of forgotten about them until they show up for huge moments and a hideout dungeon, but along with the strong character development of our friends, Gen 5 did well to slowly reveal the motivations of Team Plasma and the 7 sages who lead it through these small encounters all game long. The lore this time is that Team Plasma, through N, want to revive the legendary dragons of the Unova region. A dragon could help convince the public of their goals. Okay, now let's visit the Castelia City Bug-type gym. It's got a small spatial puzzle with honey walls that are very fun to run through, and Belieber does a fine job defeating opponents with rock blasts, Quick Claw often fixing his low speed to spare himself chip damage. The leader, Berg, himself has 2 easy bugs, but his ace Levani could destroy Belieber, so I have to sacrifice Tippy Tim first, who very slowly wears it down through 2 hyper potions for Belieber to come back and claim the win. That victory got him to level 25 to evolve into Boldor, which also means it's time to say goodbye. There's an NPC trade seeking Boldor later on, so pumping any more XP to him is a waste. But we will catch a replacement rock type very soon after a brief interruption in Pumice. Back to the Route 4 chair now. Bianca catches up for our 3rd battle, and they bring back that gag about how it doesn't make sense to be battling indoors, as we do it anyway in this gatehouse. Bianca's now got her endgame team of 4 Pokemon assembled, her Grass Monkey actually being the most dangerous opponent for my current duo. And Charon's 4th battle is only a few steps further. It's odd how close these are. I will admit having a 3rd Pokemon would feel a little nicer now. In a parallel universe, I might have kept around Adult and raised her for a while instead of Belieber, since we can just straight catch a Boldor late game for the trade. The plot needs us continuing north, but the optional desert resort area to our west has plenty of loot, trainers, and some cool new Pokemon to catch, so let's head there and expand the team. One pleasant addition in Gen 5. Most dungeons or long routes have a doctor or nurse NPC who will challenge us to a battle, but then act as a reusable free heal for the team. It's another development, along with the decreased HM burden and less annoying wild encounter placement, that show me that Game Freak had quality of life at the forefront when designing Pokemon Black and White. If you've been watching my videos, you know how big of a deal these quality of life issues are to me. They can be less visible if you're not looking for them, but collectively they did contribute a lot to my enjoyment of Generation 5. Okay, massive yada 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 clearing the area, I collect a plume fossil from a woman in the Relic Castle in the desert, which is that replacement 3rd Pokemon that I'd been asking for. After we take a very long scenic run back to Nacrene City. That fossil turns into Arkhen, a rock flying type with average defenses but top-notch attack and speed to match once he evolves. Even fine special attack, which is good because his only rock move for a while is the special ancient power. This is Skyrizzi, who comes in just at party level of 25, pretty cleanly picking up where Belieber left off. Opponents are about to experience moderate to severe rock and fly assists. Okay, should we cover the TM thing now? So, TMs became reusable in Gen 5. Find it or buy it once, you can teach that move to as many Pokemon as you want. Reusability emboldened me to teach this Dig TM that I just got to Javert, even though he's not an obvious recipient for it, and Tippy Tim would want it more. What this change really does is free the player from having to plan out every Pokemon they might want to catch ever, and check whether it could learn a move before you commit that TM to someone else in your party. In short, it reduces the pain of catching new Pokemon and makes it more fun to readjust your team as you go. The argument against reusable TMs would be a power level thing. If we could teach that early Body Slam TM in Generation 1 to the whole team, the game would break. So while Game Freak has to be slightly more careful with the power of reusable TMs they hand out, Pokemon power level overall has been creeping up slowly over the years, with many species just naturally learning really strong moves earlier than ever. By the time we get the juicy TMs in this game, like Thunderbolt, Brick Break, or X-Scissor, our team will generally already have been learning moves on that power level. That's all to say, for their debut game, reusable TMs were actually balanced quite carefully. It's the first game where part of my team planning wasn't dictated by the fact that we get some overpowered TM early on that I wanted to design the party to make use of. Well, reaching Nimbasa City, we rescue the daycare man from some plasma thugs, unlocking breeding at the daycare back on Route 3. The man also gives us a bicycle, which, hallelujah, there is not a single place in the game we need it. Neither to reach loot, nor as the key to enter a cycling road. Running shoes and fly combined are all the mobility we need, so I'm a little surprised they included the bicycle at all. I've never enjoyed how it felt to ride on in any game, so the bike being de-emphasized is another Generation 5 W to me. Now, Nimbasa City has some weird features. This subway station is effectively our Battle Tower, Battle Frontier type place for the game, with the matches taking place on train cars. But there's also a single non-competitive train, this brown line that takes us to a calm little town called Anvil, which has almost no reason to exist. There's a rare candy and an Ultra Ball to collect, and if you come here on weekends, you can make some low-stakes item trades, but overall, I question the value of the time they spent designing this place. So, back to Nimbasa, the Pokemon here sells many TMs for very high price points. I bought what I could because collecting TMs feels correct, but the selection does not feel like it'll shake up most teams. Loot-wise, we're given a Sunstone, Soothe Bell, and the Strength HM. And it's worth noting, simply having the HM is enough to use it in the overworld in this game. They no longer also require gym leader permission, which is good. Instead of needing 2 keys for your game mechanic, you can just not have the first key exist and players still gain access at the same point. Try to leave down to the west, and Bianca drags us to the musical theater, the latest version of contests, Pokeathlon, etc. Thank God this one's much simpler. Just dress up your Pokemon and let it dance. There's no special contest-only stat page, apricorn, blender, or poffin cooking system. Everything takes place in the theater. I put Tippy Tim in some cute bows and let him rock out, which was cute, but musicals definitely don't have the depth that contests did. I am neutral on this because I never did contests much, even though they do add a lot of content, especially in the postgame. I think what I said back in the day is that I wish contests had their own game and that there was nothing like this in the main games, and I think I stand by that. The last of Nimbasa City's weird buildings are 2 sports courts, which we can visit daily to fight some of the athletes for XP, their difficulty scaling with badges earned. Only 1 athlete apiece on the baseball and basketball courts were willing to fight me as of today. Then, as usual, we're allowed to fight ahead before challenging the gym. There are 2 ways to exit Nimbasa, a rare break from the linearity of this world. First, to the east is the short dead-end Route 16 with a handful of trainers and the small Lost Lorn Forest dungeon. There's an event here involving Pokemon from outside the game, but there's also a tantalizing dowsing rod hit up the cliff to our east, implying we'll be able to climb that waterfall later. And back to Nimbasa, exiting west now, we can clear Route 5 for a few more trainers ahead of time. Here's a small new Generation 5 mechanic. A few NPCs throughout the world will buy certain junk items from us for a premium. The maid in this food truck wants our mushrooms. It's not a big feature, but it's a fun way to make some cash for those TMs. Back to Nimbasa now to tackle the gym, but our rival N has words for us first. That he shares over a nice Ferris wheel ride? Kinda nice, honestly. He reveals to us that he's actually the king of Team Plasma, not its pawn, choosing to work with Getsus to save the Pokemon, whatever that means. He clearly has compassion for Pokemon and even his underling humans, battling us as a distraction so that these Plasma grunts can retreat safely. Once we beat him, he says, no big deal, he's still gonna defeat the Pokemon League champion anyway, then use his position as champion to make everyone release their Pokemon. Unless we stop him, he's issuing a challenge. It's kind of a Voldemort and Harry thing, like we're destined as the only person who can stop him. Cool, now watch this drive. I didn't plan a ground type to eat up this electric gym because it's full of Emolgas who fly anyway. They respond better to rock attacks, hence my emphasis on rock type early on. Skyrizzy does some work in here with Ancient Power, but Tippy Tim has Rock Tomb and Dig, so he actually has more comprehensive coverage. He gets more of the spotlight because he's not weak to their counterattacks, and the 4th badge is soon mine. A 5th Charon fight comes as we leave again to Route 5, and in a cutscene we meet the Pokemon League champion, Alder. This kicks off the growth arc for Charon that I actually quite like. Here's the gist. Charon has been battling to get stronger, but Alder asks him, then what? Be stronger for whom, or for what? And through the game, Charon comes to realize the purpose for strength is to help our friends, lift others up. It's a nice message. While we're on that, Bianca's parallel journey is to realize she is not driven to be the strongest, but she doesn't know what she does want to do. She gains plenty of strength regardless, but her moral is that it's okay not to have a plan. Kind of the opposite point of Charon's, really, so the writer's whole point is probably that either philosophy is okay. We need a Minccino and a Cinccino, both for trades. Cinccino can be caught directly in rustling grass to spare us a shiny stone, but the encounter rate is low, on top of rustles taking a while to appear sometimes, so I just caught 2 Minccinos and I'll blow a stone on the other one later. And this is the first point in the game to catch a version-exclusive Pokemon. Gothita or Solosis is catchable here. That's all. We'll touch on exclusives again later, but for now, note how far into the game we were before encountering a single one. Then we're allowed to cross the Driftvale drawbridge to the west. It's long and featureless, except for frequent shadow spots that usually turn into items when you step on them. Items that boost a Pokemon's EVs by a very small amount. They're basically 1/10 of a protein or other vitamin. But they also have a good sell price, so you can quickly accumulate wealth here if you farm wings for a few minutes. Across that bridge is Driftvale City with that cool background music that I only knew from the Dancing Toothless meme on TikTok a few years ago, and didn't realize it was from Pokemon. The song is a banger. There's a motorcyclist in town who finally introduces one of Black version's biggest new features. This is a rotation battle. Each side sends out 3 Pokemon at the same time, but they don't battle all at once. You only pick a move for one Pokemon to execute. The trick is you can rotate your active Pokemon and pick a move in the same turn. The opponent has a ground type in front? Maybe I want to switch to Javert for a water attack. Unless the opponent predicts our move and does his own rotation into Zebstrika to hit us with electricity. I found opponent AI hard to predict in rotation battles. It's not like they always naively rotate to punish your active Pokemon. So the strategy I finally settled on wasn't attempting to counter any specific opponent, but rather to play conservatively, rotating in a Pokemon who should withstand most of the opponent's likely attacks, or picking an attack that should be neutral at worst against any of the 3 opponents. Rotation battles are super fun, and there are only a small few throughout the whole game. I'm not sure why they've been so shy about it, only introducing them after 4 badges and then giving us so few in total. I did already mention how there are only a couple of double battles in the whole game. I think those all could have been converted to rotations just to let us enjoy the new system more, and still it would have been so few. Also, this is a main difference between Pokemon Black and White versions. Battles that are rotation battles in Black are instead triple battles in White. Those work intuitively, it's like a double battle, but 3 at once instead of 2. I feel rotation battles are much more novel than triple battles, so this is the strongest version preference that I've ever had. I choose to favor Pokemon Black over White for this video, and I'd comfortably call it the better version simply because rotation battles are more fun. All 3 of them. We can make our second NPC trade of the game here. Our Minccino is wanted by Kyle for his Basculin Red-Eye. He arrives at level 25 with a perfect Adamant nature and a Citrus Berry. Not bad. But he's got the mediocre ability Reckless, nowhere near as strong as his other option, Adaptability. This is the second trade now with a perfect nature. Trades are not common in Gen 5, but at least each one so far is conceivably good and usable. There's no more overt trade garbage. Before we can challenge the Driftvale gym, we have to tackle the cold storage dungeon because of blah blah Team Plasma's at it again. But this gives me a chance to praise Gen 5's level design. The dungeons in Unova are all pretty small, and they're integrated really well into a world that is so built up and paved. Unwild. We've had mini dungeons that are a preschool, an office building, and now an industrial freezer for meats or produce. The kind of place James would shoot Eddie. Our big development here is finding the Scald TM for Javert, who's been using a Razor Shell since level 17. Oshawott barely learns moves, but this TM rekindles his power somewhat. We meet a new Plasma Sage, Zinzolin, and battle a series of grunts before we can return to Driftvale and challenge the ground-type gym with its leader, Clay. Note that Gen 5 introduced several new ice types, which combos well with having the seasons because of winter. The first of which is available in cold storage and would be a carefully placed ground-type counter, but so is a Scalding Duat. I'm going to save my ice catch for later. This gym has a fun spatial elevator puzzle that actually tripped me up at a few points. You not only ride the elevators up and down, you have to notice when you can walk on the I-beams too. Enemy trainers aren't tough with Scald, though a couple of ground and water Palpitoads had me wishing I brought a grass type. Clay himself is easy with Javert, a Scald Burn Tick finishing off his Excadrill in one turn to dodge the heal, and Tippy Tim neutrally brick-breaking his Palpitoad for our 5th badge earned, with levels for my small team now sitting in the low 30s. Bianca catches us for her 4th battle as we go to leave on Route 6, her Musharna now fully evolved. She gives us HMO2 Fly when we win, which might make right now the more normal time to go revive your fossil Pokemon, but having done ours already, I'm clear to proceed forward. So, like I recently hinted at, the seasons are a major mechanic of Generation 5, and this is where we're talking about it. Because Deerling is the one Pokemon who changes form based on the season, and we can start encountering those here. The game has 4 seasons, but they don't match the real world because they rotate monthly instead of quarterly. December happens to be wintertime, but then it's also winter in April and in August. Here's the problem. The seasons don't change much about the game. I mean, they change a lot visually, but only a couple of things materially affect your gameplay experience, to the point I didn't even take pains to pick the optimal season for this run, which is something I would normally do with this kind of mechanic. Encounter rates for a few Pokemon change, but there's no Pokemon that becomes completely unavailable during any season. I'd say the most impactful difference there is Cryogonal, who's only located in one area and who drops from an already low 5% encounter to 1% if you're not playing in winter. Also, every season besides winter is kind of the same. There are no major differences across spring, summer, and fall. It's more about winter versus non-winter. Only a quarter of the seasons feel special. The biggest winter change is just that a few late-game spots get snowdrifts or frozen puddles that affect your ability to navigate. If you wanted to min-max, I would simply recommend starting your file toward the end of fall or toward the end of winter so that you could experience the coming Twist Mountain area both in the winter and non-winter modes as the season rolls over. But yeah, Deerling, this cute normal/grass-type Pokemon, will change its appearance along with the seasons. I caught one for content because a scientist in the Institute on Route 6 wants to be shown all 4 forms of Deerling for a prize. I went ahead and logged the summer form now. That's something we'll have to complete over the next 3 months, so Deerling content will have to continue in part 2. Yeah, sorry if that wasn't clear from the video runtime yet. We're gonna need a follow-up video for the post-game. These games are just so full of content. Okay, return your memory now to that man blocking a path in Pinwheel Forest because of fierce Pokemon. A similar man here, perhaps we're supposed to believe it's the same guy, mentions a legendary Pokemon named Cobalion who's just out of reach on Route 6, requiring Surf. We're not long from gaining Surf, so get excited to check this out soon. At the top of Route 6 is Chargestone Cave, which is maybe the best dungeon in Pokemon Black and White. It's a long cave dungeon with pretty electric blue tile set, just enough twisting paths to be fun without overwhelming, plenty of trainers, don't worry, one of them is a doctor, and tons of new Pokemon. We even get an excellent item just for showing up. Professor Juniper is here with Bianca, who now assists her research, and she gives us a Lucky Egg, which boosts experience for the holding Pokemon. This is not a new item, but I think it goes especially well with Generation 5's investment Pokemon, which... it's time to expand the team again. I knew I wanted to run one of these late evolving Pokemon on the team since they feel like a standout feature of Generation 5. Haxorus, Chandelure, Klinklang, Electros, Hydreigon, Volcarona, Vanillux. There are so many late evolutions, these Pokemon are clearly not an accident, but a design philosophy. I settled on catching a Tynamo for mine. This little fry is an electric Pokemon with the Levitate ability, which interestingly means it has no type weaknesses at all. But its stats are horrid until it evolves once, and then still not good until it evolves again, and that first evolution does not come until level 39. It's not even easy to find one. On the lowest floor here, they're an 8% encounter. This is Pemdas, and she joins at level 27, so we only have 12 levels to go in this form, but it is a slow 12 levels, trust, even while permanently holding my XP share. Last time we saw N, he challenged us to get stronger and beat the Pokemon League, like he plans to do, to see whether we deserve to stop his plan of freeing all Pokemon from their trainers. It seems like he's grown in his conviction now and emphasizes how there's no middle ground. Pokemon Liberation is a black and white issue to him, which is a clever way of actually integrating the version titles into the game's theme. Well done, writers. So this is a little check-in battle for him to see if we're still on track to rival him. And we super are. He's got 3 Pokemon weak to fighting in this battle. Fighting truly is the best type to raise in this game by a long shot. Then just a few steps further and we're in Mistralton City. It couldn't come soon enough after Route 6 and that long cave. The weather TMs are for sale in Mistralton's Pokemart for 50,000 apiece. Ouch. And there's a move rememberer here who works for heart scales, which by now you will have a couple of if you've used the dowsing rod consistently. We'll have work for her soon. Meet Professor Juniper's father Cedric, also a professor, and the town's gym leader Skyla, who won't fight us before we complete this game's worst written quest. You see, Skyla saw some generic, unnamed sick Pokemon on top of a tower nearby that we never see but have to go help, despite not being doctors. First, let's explore the rest of town. This one boy says to revisit him after defeating the gym here, so that's another quest. On the plane runway is TM58 Skydrop, which I point out because we did just get the Fly HM pretty recently. 2 flying moves in a row is lame. Then I grab Belieber out of the PC because his trade is coming up, and head up Route 7 toward that undisclosed sick Pokemon, where Javert dings 36 to evolve into Samurott, a samurai otter. This design actually grew on me. Maybe it's the mustache. I like the Gen 5 starters a lot. A hiker in a house up here wants our Boldor for his Emolga. Our 3rd trade of the game, that 5 trades quest is inching closer. Manny sends us Mini Pete, which is an adorable name. He carries a Lumberry, but has an awkward nature that only exchanges defenses. Emolgas aren't easy to encounter though, needing shaking grass, so again this is a reasonable trade for the game to include. And bonus, there is a rotation battle up here against Ace Trainer Elmer. He's got a Liepard, a Swoobat, and a Watchog. No further comments really, I just love to see it. The Celestial Tower is only a few steps further. It's Black and White's version of the Pokemon Tower, Mount Pyre, or the Lost Tower. The obligatory spooky place where Game Freak can shove some ghost Pokemon. Litwicks are another investment Pokemon available here. It's actually nice that the Pokemon we encounter in the late game are often these late evolvers. Game Freak wanted to make sure that we get to play with them in their unevolved forms too. It's the first time the games have designed around this issue that's existed since Gen 1. Skyrizzy evolves fighting a trainer at level 37, his offensive stats and speed now so high he's generally one-shotting everything that I sent him in against for the rest of the game. And I was feeling cheeky, so I sent out Pemdas against an Alomomola 3 levels her junior, which she still could not handle at all. In her defense, she got a generational bad run of Confusion self-hits, but she's still not ready for handling her own battles for a while. Pass a couple floors of trainers, then we find Skyla at the top, and no trace of that sick Pokemon. Cool, glad we came. Skyla says she found it up here, gave it a max revive, and it flew away, but she doesn't even mention what species it was. This whole sequence stands out as lazy quest writing in a game that otherwise put a lot of work into the script. Well, great, we can finally challenge Mistratlin's Flying Gym. It's very easy. Flying type has common weaknesses, and we're running both a rock and an electric type by now. Skyrizzy crushes the trainers and Skyla herself with haste, and we receive yet another flying TM for our victory. That's 3 flying moves we've received in short time frame, 2 of them within this very town. And it gets worse. That boy we're supposed to meet after getting the badge? He directs us to his treasure now, which is a 4th flying move in a row. This is absolutely unhinged. There's no gameplay reason for all of these. I gave red and blue versions crap for handing us the water gun and bubble beam TMs one after the other, but Mistratlin's blast of 4 flying moves puts that to shame. Combined with the stupid tower quest, the designers must have been sick on Mistratlin designing day or let an intern handle it or something. Moving on, now that Javert is fully evolved, the move Rememberer can teach him Mega Horn. His moveset has really just been Razor Shell all game until he got Scald, so adding a little more coverage is finally super welcome. And then I wasted several minutes of time on a bogus side quest. See, our 6th Charon fight is coming next, and this time his Pokemon each hold good items. My eye is specifically on his Servine's leftovers. But nobody on my team can learn Thief, so I spent some time researching what's easy to catch for Thief at a level that won't get demolished by Charon in the process. Joltik from back in the Chargestone Caves looks like a fair candidate, so let's just nab one of those spiky boys, teach Thief, and then nab Charon's leftovers. Looks like that worked. Alder shows up after the fight to help develop Charon's story and get him thinking more on why he wants to be strong. Then Alder hands us each a Surf HM, awesome, and then let me just grab those leftovers. Hey, Pokemon Black? Where did my leftovers go? Yeah, so apparently Generation 5 was changed so you don't keep held items that you steal from trainer fights. That's okay, I can live with that, but hold on, I have another issue now. If Thief can't steal trainer items, the game has so much open design space now for giving powerful held items to trainers throughout the game. Wide Lens, Bright Powder, Big Root, all kinds of items could be given to the gym leaders, to N, and to the Elite Four. I assumed that the reason previous games didn't have many NPC held items because they didn't want us stealing them, but now that it's clearly not an economy issue, it's weird that only Charon has any held items all game. Forget it. We have Surf. This game did great to cut back on HM-gated moments, but it couldn't resist leaving in a fair few Surf zones. Our first stop is Route 6, where that bald guy told us about Cobalion, because I want to go catch that in Mistratlin Cave. Surf in, we do need Flash so that Joltik does get a real job, and loot the small cave for a Rock Slide TM, a nice power boost for Skyrizzy. Then up a few stairs is the legendary fighting Steel-type Pokemon Cobalion. I'm looking to catch this, so Pemdas actually manages to contribute with a Thunder Wave to help my odds, then it takes quite a few Ultra Balls to click. But I don't want this on the team. Catching Cobalion just unlocks access to the other 2 Pokemon in its triad, and my sights are on Virizion back in the Pinwheel Forest. So I head back there, deep in the woods, and repeat my catching strategy with Thunder Wave. But Virizion knows Giga Drain, which makes it even tougher to catch if it self-heals, so it took me quite a few reloads to land this one. This is 55 Burgers now on the team. As a fighting type, she replaces Tippy Tim, and she also finally adds grass coverage for dealing with Seismitoads. She comes with Giga Drain, which has 10 PP now and 75 base power. It got a huge buff. Actually, tons of moves across types were changed in Gen 5 to standardize them and form cycles. For example, Petal Dance and Thrash being buffed to 120 power, so now they're basically grass and normal type versions of Outrage. Okay, there's a handful of derpy surf loot throughout the world, like the park in Nakreen City, but there's 2 more main surfing zones you don't want to miss. If we revisit the early game Wellspring Cave, there's a basement floor accessible with surf now for a few TMs and trainers. Then have an empty party slot as you fly back to Nuvema Town and then surf west out of Route 1. Real quick though, PEMDAS hit level 39 here against an early trainer to evolve into Electric and pick up Crunch. Okay, this is the worst water section in the game, and even then, it's not bad. Two kind of large outdoor areas with raging currents reminding me of Hoenn Route 133. It's really not bad, I just have PTSD from prior games' extensive water areas. Somebody starting with Gen 5 would have no problems here. Routes 17 and 18 are not too big, and importantly, they're more narrow and puzzly to navigate. The area almost plays like a dungeon. It's preferable to the wide open oceans in the other games that you have to zigzag across to find all the loot. And half the trainers are on the islands here anyway, it's not all swimmers. You can get a Larvesta egg from a ranger in this rest house. This is the epitome of investment Pokemon. The egg takes a while to hatch, and then Larvesta doesn't evolve until level 59, well into the postgame. That's a little extreme even for me. And HM05 Waterfall is here, and it's optional. Hallelujah. The other exciting feature of this water area is this island on Route 17 hosting the Thunderbolt TM. That's good news for PEMDAS, and the P2 lab, which is some event thing we can't use in 2025. So that's our surf content done. Getting surf and suddenly needing to halt game progress to gather loot and fight battles around the world that were gated by water barriers is something every game in the series has done so far. It's not inherently bad, there is something fun about remembering, hey, yeah, that bald guy a few areas back did say that surf will get us to Cobalion. I've just not liked how much of it past games had, in addition to having to track rock climb spots and strength boulders, etc. Pokemon Black's largest surf zone, Route 17 and 18, was not huge, and it was laid out physically in an interesting way with currents and island hopping, not just open ocean. I can say Gen 5 definitely has the least painful HM backtracking of any game by a mile, even counting surf, and it makes the game much more enjoyable for me personally. Okay, back to game progress. The next area, northeast out of Mistralton City, is Twist Mountain, the one area in the game with significant differences when played in winter versus non-winter. It's still not a huge difference. You get a couple more trainers non-winter, but winter has arguably better loot like a metal coat and a substitute TM. The thing is, I want to catch an ice type here since there is a dragon gym coming and plenty of other good targets for ice types as well. But I want a Cryogonal who dips to just 1% encounter odds when it's not winter. So excuse me while I put on a podcast and grind this out. Just pray for a good nature. I like Cryogonal for having great special attack and speed, because with ice types' many weaknesses, I prefer to lean Glass Cannon with my ice Pokemon. So as long as neither of those stats are decreased by nature, we'll take neutral. Welcome Lindsay to the team. She has Aurora Beam now and learns Natty Ice Beam in a few levels, but pretty much no other attack moves that matter. Flash Cannon TM, which we pick up here in Twist Mountain, can break the Ice Mirror if you care, but Lindsay is mostly just for scoring one-shots through Ice Beam. As soon as we step outside of Twist Mountain, we're already in Osiris City, and nothing stops us from waltzing right in to challenge the gym. Except a bit of content I want to do in town. A woman in the Poké Center hands out Brick Break. This comes quite late in Gen 5, but it's carefully placed for the Ice Gym if you have not already been running a goated fighting type. The Mart has more TMs for exorbitant prices, and to help afford them, there is a man who pays double for shiny rare things like nuggets, pearls, and star pieces. We can gain a second XP share by showing this man a Pokemon that we've raised more than 25 levels since we caught it. That's only Javert on my current team. And I actually use this bonus XP share later. If you hand 2 XP shares out, then your team levels don't get unbalanced so bad if you only use one Pokemon to sweep an entire gym. Foreshadowing for sure. Alright, so let's hit the gym. It's a slide puzzle like usual in the ice, but a very simple one. I allow Skyrizzy and 55 Burgers to split the trainers in here, each of them having super effective moves, but also a dual type that takes double ice damage if they miss. Indeed, that gets 55 Burgers knocked out against leader Bryson thanks to an insane bad run of confusion, but Skyrizzy offers backup for the win. Outside the gym afterward, the Shadow Triad, that's like Ghetsis' secret police, summon us to the Dragon Spiral Tower north of town. Sharon rushes off with Bryson out of concern for the tower, and even Bianca finds courage to walk with us to the tower. The game continues to introduce new Pokemon here, and even all the way through Victory Road. They made 156 new Pokemon, so they were really able to pack the world with them. It takes a certain confidence to create content like this, whole Pokemon species that will barely get used based on how late they show up. I respect that. Otherwise, this dungeon just involves a lot of Plasma Grunt battles, until we reach an important cutscene at the top. N is here, and he's managed to revive the ancient dragon Zekrom, which is a little weird. Pokemon plays a switcheroo on you here. In Black version, we'll only get to catch the white dragon because N has the black one. It's not like Sapphire version had us catching Groudon. This is a difference. So, N now has a dangerous ally. He says that our only chance to rival him is to revive the white dragon Reshiram. But how? The good guys huddle up. The white stone we need could be at the Relic Castle, back in the Route 4 desert where we got Skyrizzy's fossil. We have access to more floors of this place now, but once we reach the bottom, another cutscene with Getsis amounts to saying, nope, the stone isn't here. We've wasted our time. However, Professor Juniper has found a clue. With a phone call, we're directed back to Nacrene City, where Lenora miraculously produces Reshiram's white stone. It was that plain stone sitting in the museum the whole time. But we still need to learn how to use it. For that, we're going to seek expertise from the Dragon-type leader of the 8th gym up in Opalucid City. And that's amazingly, not far away. It's not gated by a long dungeon or a dive HM. To get there, we need Route 8, a short route out of Isiris City with a Sludge Bomb TM, which isn't really good on any single Pokemon. Poison type is so narrow, Gen 2 got it right. You gotta give Sludge Bomb early on for me to care. There is one very small dungeon off of Route 8, the Moor of Isiris. This area is mostly for another event we don't have access to, but at least there's a few trainers and items to grab. For what it's worth, this is the other place, like Twist Mountain, that's a little different in winter. Icy sliding tiles make you miss out on one of the trainers and some of the loot. Bianca is still wondering what to do with her life and enjoying her Pokemon journey in the meantime as she catches us for our 5th battle. Her Stoutland is fully evolved here, even the humble Route 1 Lillipup evolves into a respectable late-game Pokemon. Black and White really did work hard to give all its new Pokemon a niche. There are practically no total duds. Then Two Blind Bridge starts after Route 8, and Getsis catches us here to reveal N's relationship to Team Plasma. He may not be the king he thinks he is. It sounds like Getsis raised N from a baby, guiding his education to inception him into wanting to do all of this dragon revival stuff on his own, even though Getsis has been secretly using N all along because his real goal is to hold power over the world once everyone else has been tricked into releasing their Pokemon. Except instead of trying to stop Getsis, our focus is still going to be on reviving the other dragon to challenge N. It's a slight miss for me that our character doesn't at any point tell the other good guys, or N, that we should all be focusing on Getsis, but maybe we could justify this if we assume that our character perceives Getsis as powerful beyond being challenged, which then implies that we see N as weak and beatable by comparison. I don't know, our character covering for Getsis is really weird. I did luck into recording this segment on a Friday evening, which is when a biker gang takes over the Two Blind Bridge. They're called the Black Empoleon, but if you defeat their leader, he renames the gang after our lead Pokemon, so everyone meet the Black Virizion instead. Route 9 on the far end has a handful more bikers to fight, including a rare double battle. There's also this game's department store, a series fixture that came pretty darn late this time. It is quite nice inside. There's only 3 floors, all within the same loading screen, and connected by stairs, so there's no clumsy elevator. Interestingly, there's a handful of Pokemon battles inside here. Make sure to have your amulet coin on for a lot of extra cash from the rich boy and lady. There's 2 TMs for exorbitant prices, and our first Thunderstone. Congratulations, PEMDAS. It's time to become Electros. Oh, and this is the first place we can buy quick balls. We only had 3 all game through now from that clerk in Castelia City. It looks like Black and White finally caught on to how good these are and Gate kept them a little bit more appropriately. Just a few steps further and we're in the final city, Opalucid. Immediately we catch Getsis making a passionate speech and the crowd seems to be eating it up. We have to act fast before people start freeing their Pokemon under false pretenses. Opalucid City is a little bit interesting because it has a different appearance between versions. In white, it's all stone and ancient feeling, like Sotopolis from Gen 3. In black, it's futuristic with Tron LEDs all over. But the differences are only cosmetic. Cosmetic differences is kind of a theme of Gen 5, huh? The gym leader does vary, either Drayden or Iris, depending on version, but their teams are exactly the same. Well, as we hoped, Drayden is able to teach us about the legendary dragons. Reshiram and Zekrom split out of the same ancient dragon to take the sides of 2 arguing brothers, one who sought ideals and the other who sought truth. They fought each other to exhaustion, reaching peace when they admitted neither side was right, that reality isn't black and white perhaps, and the dragons disappeared, until now, when N revived Zekrom. But Drayden has no idea how to revive Reshiram and says we may as well fight him for the final gym badge while we're here. Which, canonically, N must have done just before us, and Drayden didn't bother asking him anything? Or, realize something bad was happening and refuse N's challenge or flee town to avoid letting him earn the badge? We've been denied gym battles for much stupider reasons all series long. This is quite a plot hole. Or Drayden supports Getsus. Like, what is it? Before we do the gym, the Battle House here lets us fight 2 rotation battles a day. Let's use those for a bit more experience for Lindsay, who still hasn't quite got the party level because we want her strong for fighting dragons. We can further develop her along Route 10 to the north with a few tough trainer battles. And this is also the second time all game that we can catch a version-exclusive Pokemon, Vullaby or Rufflet. Pokemon Black and White still included the concept of version exclusives, but they use them so conservatively it barely matters. Personally, I think if you're going to bother having version exclusives, these would have been good games to go pretty deep on that. With a whole new batch of 156 Pokemon, they barely fit into the game world, and some late game encountered Pokemon like Heatmor and Bouffalant may as well not exist. Making several more species exclusive to each version would have let them justify the concept better, and maybe even been less overwhelming, giving fewer new species to learn all at once. Alright, back to Opelucid City now to fight its Dragon-type gym, where the fast Lindsay with Ice Beam outspeeds everything in here to one-shot her way through the entire gym, leader included, only needing an Ether halfway through to restore PP. I'm not sure how difficult this gym is supposed to be, but bringing a Cryogonal in here is taking a gun to a knife fight. It's actually the kind of Pokemon that I like using best, one with specific or narrow strengths, but really good when it's good. I find it lovely that Drayden is not a douchebag. Dragon trainers throughout the series so far have been difficult personalities. This man respectfully gives up his badge when we win, does not withhold his TM prize either, then says GGWP. Then outside, Professor Juniper shows up to tell us she has no idea how to revive Reshiram, but then she tells us where to find Victory Road and hands us a Master Ball. This is kind of unnecessary, and I count this as another uncommon instance of bad writing in a game that otherwise did a good job avoiding those NPC pops on screen for a second just to have a cutscene and then pieces out moments that previous games were quite heavy on. To Route 10 again, Charon will challenge us to his 7th battle. His team is now fully evolved, and again they hold good items that we tragically cannot steal. His character arc wraps up after this fight, Charon having finally learned the value of community, and Bianca is here to support us too, handing us some healing items and wishing us luck in the Pokemon League. Our only rival left is N. So, we're on to Victory Road, where by tradition, I give my team a little scorecard on their performance. It's an exercise that's less meaningful in Generation 5 because Game Freak did such careful work making every Pokemon feel strong in some way. So I'm going to normalize my scores here to distribute them better. I don't want to give everybody a B+, so I'm going to be a little harsher than usual and factor in their strengths relative to each other. Except, hold on, we only have 5 Pokemon. I do wish that I'd been running a 6th Pokemon just for the joy of experiencing more of this new generation, but it would have been sad ditching it now for a Pokemon who makes its first appearance inside Victory Road. At a common 40%, thankfully, so we can be greedy with ability and nature. Durant is the speediest steel type we've ever seen, with excellent attack and defense, and he's dual bug. I've been praising fighting type all game, but bug can attack the common dark types too, and steel type on defense makes it resistant in most of the matchups where we'll want him on offense. You could argue Durant is carefully placed to counter some of the Elite Four. Let's see, ultra fast, multifaceted offense on a small frame? This is James Cook. He comes with Crunch, he's fast, so the flinch on Ironhead will do work, and we've got an X-Scissor TM already lined up for Bug type. Now we can rank the rest of the team. First, Javert. I straight up don't understand the water starter love across generations, except for Marshtomp because of how good its ground dual type was. Water does so little for the team on offense, and Javert only used like 3 attacks all game, Water Gun turning into Razor Shell for a while, then a brief moment with Scald before just doing Surf. He would get left behind in level if I didn't send him in for lots of neutral matchups just so he could catch up. I rarely need to use him in fights. I admit his stats are good, and I can count on him to 2-shot most foes, but he one-shots nothing. Megahorn adds a little coverage, but overall, like a C. Sorry, y'all. Tippy Tim did extremely well, fighting type having a million targets in Black and White, and he had some minor rock and ground attacks to add diversity. He started to fall off after learning Brick Break at 29, but if I kept him all the way until 49, close combat would have done work against the Elite Four and final bosses. B+ because his moveset isn't very exciting, even if it is good at the one thing. Skyrizzy lasered down everything he touched, so the conversation has to start real high. Can we justify taking off any points for Archeops? Well, he's always been an excellent flying type, but it did take a bit of time until finding the Rock Slide TM to learn a rock move that could get the one-shots that I needed him to. He's also stuck not using an item, because that's how his best move Acrobatics works, so he couldn't hold my Lucky Egg or Amulet coin, which did force somebody else to hold those on the party for value, so you could say he's a bit parasitic to the party as a whole. A- because of that drawback. PEMDAS I haven't particularly liked in combat. Electric just isn't very important in Gen 5, but Crunch is going to help the endgame, and Thunder Wave was actually critical for catching my legendaries. I feel about her like I did Javert, not exciting on offense, but dependable on defense thanks to her lack of type weaknesses. B- for having slightly more relevant coverage than he did. 55 Burgers fixes what I didn't love about Tippy Tim, grass type adding a lot of coverage on top of fighting. I haven't highlighted her much because her level started higher than the party's, but her Sacred Swords are fine. Giga Drain is more often a one-shot because of lower special defense on enemies where I'm using it, and I do value having a grass Pokemon in a game with ground-water Palpitoads running around. I'd say the problem is she has a lot of type weaknesses, but her defenses are quite good, which helps a little to mitigate that issue. Solid C+ for being diverse and high stats, but the slew of weaknesses is rough. And Lindsay does one thing, big fast ice beams, but she does it well. Aside from soloing Dryden's gym, there have been pretty common ground and flying foes for her to kill too. And it's easy to dismiss her pitiful defense, but her special defense is quite good, letting her tank even super effective special moves if she ever needs to attack twice. B. Cryogonal has a surprising number of good matchups if you look for them. Regarding the dungeon layout, this is the most fun Victory Road has ever been. It's not too confusing. Gen 4's Victory Road got kinda bad with the multi-level bridges, and there are strength boulders all over, not to hide loot, but to enable shortcuts if we need to come through again. Which we will. The gimmick this time is you can slide down the hill exterior to reach a loot down below. There's just enough of this to be fun, but not too much of it, and the shortcuts make climbing back to where you dropped from no sweat. Level design truly is one of the great strengths of Gen 5, but it's not something that I would have even asked for since it was always fine in previous games. Game Freak just decided to make really good dungeons in Pokémon Black and White for the love of the game. I'm pleased. Before we leave Victory Road, so Cobalion had two partners, not just Virizion. Terrakion, the fighting rock type, can be caught here at the end of Victory Road. At level 42, which is a ways below party. If there's one Pokemon who got a bad placement, it's this guy. And he has a ton of common weaknesses. Why do I have the feeling I'll be running Terrakion in my future? Anyway, after a fun and not too long Victory Road, we're through to fight the Elite Four. I flew around the world first to sell my valuables to their collectors for the best price, then did some vitamin shopping, particularly for James Cook since he missed out on earning EVs all game before beginning my Elite Four challenge. And new this generation, we can fight the Elite Four in any order. Their levels are all the same. They're also not very high level. Just by playing efficiently and using up my rare candies, my team actually matches their levels, and they only have 4 Pokemon apiece. It's clear the Elite Four was designed to not be too hard on purpose in Gen 5, but don't worry, they do get powerful rematches in the postgame. Because they're easy, I'm not going to call their fights play-by-play, but I will do that for the final bosses since those are tougher fights. Instead of min-maxing and trying to fight my better matchups first, I simply challenge the elites in clockwise order, starting with the Ghost Trainer Chantal. The arenas are really well modeled for each elite. Javert had a good matchup against Chantal's Golurk thanks to its ground type. PEMDAS and James Cook were rewarded for knowing Crunch, and Skyrizzy had a Rock Tomb for the Ace Chandelure. Chantal was not a tough fight, and that's 1 of 4 elites down. Grimsley, the Dark Elite, is next. 55 Burgers could have easily soloed this one, especially after a turn 1 Swords Dance, but I decided to let the rest of the team get some action too. James Cook got Lipard, and Lindsay came in for Crocodile because she does not have many Elite Four uses otherwise, but I returned to Burgers to crap all over the final Bisharp. That's halfway done. Sleeping peacefully in this Elden Beast arena is Caitlyn the Psychic user, whose sprite caused me to yawn in real life. Now, Psychic type has been scarce all game, so you wouldn't have been rewarded much for using a Dark or Ghost Pokemon on your team. That's why I favored not Dark Pokemon themselves, but ones who can learn Crunch or Shadow Claw as coverage. PEMDAS had Crunch for Reuniclus, Lindsay came out to one-shot Sigilith, though with only special attacks, this thing would have barely hurt her if it got the chance to attack. James Cook bugs Gothitelle, and Javert's Megahorn gets Musharna low, before I chose to play it safe and win with Surf because it has better accuracy. That leaves only Marshall, the Fighting Elite. All of Marshall's Pokemon know rock moves, so flying is not a safe counter. You would prefer Psychic here, which again is awkward to want in the endgame after how bad Psychic type would have been all game long until now. Could this have been intentional? Did Game Freak want to either trick us or give us a payoff for dragging a weaker Psychic type through the game? Anyway, Skyrizzy has the speed and power to disregard his rock moves. He gets Throw in 1 hit. Sock is a trap though. This one has the sturdy ability, so glass cannoning will not work here. I put in Javert, who wins in 2 surfs after dodging 1 stone edge and taking another, though he still would have survived if both had hit. Then 2 more Pokemon without sturdy is just 2 more one-shots for Skyrizi. Nothing is everything. We did it! We beat the Elite Four! But what about the typical gotcha champion fight? Well, now the game gets really cool. Prepare for some wild cutscenes. N, having just defeated Alder in battle right before we got here, says the magic word and summons a huge castle out of the ground to surround the Pokemon League. The player has to suspend their disbelief. Apparently, Team Plasma secretly dug and constructed this castle around the Pokemon League many years ago without the League noticing, which feels implausible. N rushes into the castle, bidding us to fight him at the summit, while Alder spews platitudes about people in Pokemon being strong because of teamwork or whatever. There will be no League champion fight today. Part of me likes that N defeated Alder here. The same kumbaya crap we've been hearing for 4 generations now was not enough to defeat a powerful challenger. In a way, N's victory over Alder is justice for Blue and question mark. So, Team Plasma's Puppet King N wants us to come battle him, but at odds with that, 6 of the Plasma Sages try to jump us once we enter the castle. Now this is not a writing fail. Team Plasma's true master isn't N, but Getsis, whom these sages answer to, and they can't risk us actually defeating N to stop him from making people release their Pokemon. But we're saved because the region's United Gym Leaders show up at the critical moment, minus Salon, and hold off the sages while we pursue N. This castle is beautiful, and it gives me strong Dark Cloud 2 vibes. And the whole thing feels like a boss arena, so as we climb, you fight the urge to save your game constantly. But there's actually no pressure to save until we're literally staring down Reshiram. We can play it cool. Quite a few NPCs in here fill out the lore of N and Team Plasma, but the gist is that N's whole life was structured by Getsis, raising him in a way that picked his convictions for him and leading us to this moment. He was made into the villain that we now face. The castle does provide a PC in one room, and she wasn't with us too long, but it's time to bench Lindsay because we're going to want that party slot. Then, at the top of the tower, N summons the Black Lightning Dragon Zekrom, who's kind of Digimon coded, I have to say. People get on Vanillish's design, but Zekrom feels even less Pokemon-like to me. Just when things look bad, our White Stone activates and bursts into the White Fire Dragon Reshiram. We've been recognized as the other hero, opposite of N, but complementary to him. But before we can battle N, we must catch Reshiram. This is the first time in a Pokemon game that we're forced to catch a legendary in order to advance the game. I've heard some people feel negatively about this, but I think it makes perfect sense both for the writing and game design. We fight dozens of boss trainer fights every game, so why not force a boss catch? One time is fine. Alas, Reshiram's catch rate is very lenient so as to not frustrate players, and in a first try quick ball, I snag it. This is Teacup. Now let's see if she can beat Zekrom. Reshiram is automatically placed first in your party when caught to guarantee that the 2 dragons face off in battle. He's got 2 levels on us, but he's obsessed with using his Fusion Bolt attack, and we know to use Dragon Breath, landing the Paralyze and easily mopping up turn 2. That is only one of N's Pokemon though. This is finally the challenging fight we desired. N's Caracosta gives a rare chance for 55 Burkers to act in a grass capacity. She has mostly been on Sacred Sword duty. Which, I keep her in once Vanillix comes out, going Swords Dance into a lethal Sacred Sword as he only starts Hail. In fact, Burgers has this fight locked now. Every remaining opponent dies to a single Sacred Sword. Fighting type truly is pushed this generation. Nice fight, N. N begins to have a change of heart after our fight. We had to earn the right for him to listen to us by winning in battle first, but he's already coming around to the possibility his philosophy isn't the only justifiable one. Of course, we saw this coming, but the game has Getsis reveal as the real bad guy now, and also as N's father. I think foster father officially, but the hair color matching makes me think that the original intent was full biological father. Maybe they retconned it because it was too dark. After berating his son, Getsis initiates the final boss battle against us. Teacup is still stuck in first place, having had no chance to change our party, but I don't want him fighting Cofagrigus, so I swap to Pemdas for free, him wasting the turn protecting against nothing. Thunderwave into a few crunches gets him low, but after he sticks a Toxic, he is able to protect for enough turns for us to die. Javert has to clean up. His Bouffalant survives a big attack from Burgers, hitting back very hard, so I claw back a few hit points through Giga Drain as he heals before sending another lethal Sacred Sword. Getsis puts in his Ace Hydreigon next, who's quite scary. Lindsay would eat this thing up, but I'm left with Teacup, who takes a big hit before again clutching Paralyze on my Dragon Breath for an easy win next turn. Then Seismitoad, 4x weak to Grass, is just a full battery recharge for Burgers. Electros takes strategy. I send out Skyrizzy, likely baiting an electric attack as I choose U-turn so that Burgers comes back out to resist the hit. Unfortunately, he does kill Burgers next turn, but by now he is low enough for Skyrizzy to win through Rock Slide. Then, just because his level is lower from not helping the endgame much, I allow Javert to surf twice to clean up against Bisharp, defeating Sage Getsis and winning the game. N expresses regret in a cutscene, but he's not yet willing to forgive himself. He takes off on Zekrom and credits a roll on Pokémon Black. Whew. Pokémon Black and White are so much fun to play. They're a breath of life into a 15-year-old series, improving just about every problem I had with the previous games, and also improving aspects that were already good. Generation 5 gave us a huge variety of new Pokémon. It was enough to give every type some love and to spread them out across the whole game. From Route 1 to Victory Road, we were encountering new species with very little repetition. For the first time since Red and Blue, I was discovering new species everywhere I looked, and it was awesome. One downside of that, as I mentioned, was the Pokemon being introduced in the final areas barely got any screen time. What this does is put light pressure on the sequels, Black 2 and White 2, to introduce new Pokemon like Heatmor and Bouffalant earlier in the game. To be clear, I don't know if they do this, it just would clearly be a good idea. But still, having so many Pokemon that they had to save some for Victory Road is what we call a good problem to have. I was mad about Platinum version requiring so many HMs on the team, especially when faced with how difficult that game is and how valuable those 9-ish move slots would have been for other purposes on the party. All the way back to Generation 2, really, move slots have been stifled by the huge HM burden. Well, Black and White finally freed us from that. After requiring Cut once early on, we're allowed to just not use HMs if we don't want to, but we still prefer to have a Strength user for opening shortcuts and a Surf user for some loot and bonus areas. Treating HMs as a carrot rather than a stick, I think, is a nice change. For some more quick hits, reusable TMs make planning your party less onerous, hidden items suck less to find than ever, there's no forced bicycle section, and placement of long grass and dungeon layouts are a little friendlier to players who want to avoid wild encounters, which is all to put a bow on this point. Pokemon Black and White paid careful attention to quality of life and generally just made the game more pleasant to play than it's ever been by removing things that were annoying. Okay, let's talk creative. The use of 3D modeling in the world is delightful, and the battle animations are so personal and alive. The art direction of this game was really nice after what a cynic could call lazy work across Gen 4. I thought the story was better than ever too, treating the bad guys, well, N, as human beings and characterizing them with personalities and motivations is a fast way to make me love a game or a movie's writing. And we had more than just Team Plasma to focus on. Giving us two friendly rivals finding their place in the world added a nice B story and gave me more reasons to care about what happens to Unova. I'll have to cover the NPC trades more in part 2 because they have more content in the post-game, but the 3 that we got to do so far were all a decent power level and not too hard to catch the species that they asked for. Plus, Petalil is a white version exclusive except for the NPC trade, which I think was a clever choice. The game absolutely could have gone harder with exclusives, but then walked some of that back through NPC trades like Petalil if they felt guilty about it. Either way, you're engaging more with game systems. It's an elegant solution. So with all these positive comments I have for Generation 5, did Game Freak miss at all? Yeah, of course, but I want to be clear, everything that I mentioned here besides the UI is a small forgivable complaint. Like when I say seasons didn't matter. It was a shame to include them, but then have spring, summer, and fall experience be almost identical, winter having the only meaningful changes, but so few of them anyway. Have the courage to actually design seasonal exclusive Pokemon. It also would have helped them fit all 156 new ones into the game world. The awesome new rotation battles, or triple battles in white version, barely got screen time, and double battles were barely acknowledged too. We absolutely should have had a rotation battle gym leader, the way that Tate and Liza were a double battle gym leader in the generation when those were introduced, and I would have liked a good 10 more throughout the game as well. Really, from Generation 5 emerges a theme of playing it safe. The seasons barely mattered, there's only a few rotation battles, there are so few version-exclusive Pokemon, so few NPC trades. I do understand it. In light of Game Freak wanting to reboot the series and do it right, they easily could have introduced too much chaos with these mechanics and thrown off the balance, but a lot of Gen 5 has me wanting more. Related, for as much as I like the game world, it is very linear, but again, linearity gives better control over the combat balance, which it's clear Game Freak was focused on perfecting this time, so I get it. And speaking of combat, I thought they did a great job of reining in power levels this generation, but boy was the metagame strange. Fighting type was too good, Rock and Ice overperformed, and a lot of other types were worse than ever, just based on the Gym Leaders, Elite Four, and Plasma bosses. I do like how the meta changes for each game, but it's just strange how good Fighting type was here, with all of the Dark, Steel, and Ice opponents. As for my one real complaint with Pokémon Black and White, the UI and UX is still rather clumsy. Tell me why I have to press X, then A twice to open my Pokemon menu. That should happen in one button. New items you collect are now at the top of your bag, that's fine, but you can't pin items to the top, meaning I had to constantly scroll around for my repels and re-drag them to the top of the page. A task that sucks more because the scrolling speed in your item bag is inconsistent. It stutters and changes speed while you're scrolling. It feels like a programming error. Plus, I hate that the buttons are in a diamond shape on the battle screen and you have to tap A or down first before pressing on fight. Here's a little UX tip for y'all. The most common actions in your software should have zero friction. Players are going to be clicking on fight on 90% of turns in battle, so the fight action should have been highlighted by default and only take one button press. It is damning that Pokemon's best user interface happened back in Generation 2. So, couple of small gripes, my only real problem being that the menus still feel bad to play with. Pokémon Black and White did a fantastic job with the art, the new monster designs, the balance, and the writing. It is certainly the best video game they've produced yet, and the most fun I've had playing them since the start of Pokémania with the 90s games. That's it for Pokémon Black. Thank you for watching, and huge thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. Your support means a great deal to me, especially in times of turmoil. It has been a very rough couple of months for me personally, so I'm grateful to all of my viewers who stuck around, and I'm happy to finally pick up the pieces and start getting new content out to y'all. And I don't know if you can hear it, but I actually got a septoplasty as well, so to me, my voice sounds better than ever. Let me know if you thought so. That and other life events did mean that I missed a chunk of spooky season, but if you're interested in seeing me cover horror games, head on over to my new second channel. I've got another fresh video going up there soon. As far as this channel, expect post-game coverage for Black and White coming next. James Cook has a lot more work to do. I'll see you then. Bye for now, y'all.